Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at Intro to Psychopharmacology,
Yeah.
a textbook that really tries to break down how medications are used to treat mental health conditions.
Oh,
So get ready to explore how these really powerful drugs work,
that's a fascinating field.
where they came from, and maybe even challenge some assumptions along the way.
Yeah, psychopharmacology is really all about how drugs impact the brain and behavior,
All right.
particularly in the context of mental health. And it's not
So unpack that for me.
just as simple as popping a pill.
All right.
It's much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, what makes it so complex?
Well, you've got neurotransmitters, you have receptors,
Mm-hmm.
and each person's unique brain chemistry.
Right.
So finding the right medication and dosage isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
It's a very personalized journey, often with a lot of trial and error involved.
So where did this journey even begin? I mean, were ancient civilizations already trying to tinker with brain chemistry?
You might be surprised to learn that they were,
Okay.
in a way.
Okay.
The ancient Greeks, for example, had their own theories about mental health
Mm-hmm.
based on this concept of humoral theory.
Right.
They believed that imbalances in bodily fluids
Right.
were the root of mental illness.
I remember reading about that, and they had some pretty intense treatments, too.
Exactly.
Bloodletting to try and restore that balance.
Yeah, bloodletting,
Meh.
trying to get those fluids back in order.
Right.
And during the Middle Ages, while Western practices kind of stagnated,
Mm-hmm.
advancements in mental health treatment continued in the Islamic world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they even had hospitals with dedicated psychiatric wards.
Wow.
But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that psychopharmacology as we know it really took off.
That's when the discovery of chlorpromazine revolutionized psychiatry.
Absolutely.
And from what I read, it was a total accident, right?
You
Weren't
yeah,
even looking for this.
yeah, it was initially used as an anesthetic adjunct,
Mm.
but doctors noticed that patients given chlorpromazine became remarkably calm and detached. And this led to its use in treating conditions like schizophrenia.
Okay.
And suddenly there was medication that could effectively manage some of the most severe symptoms.
But why was this discovery so revolutionary? I mean, weren't there treatments for mental illness before chlorpromazine?
There were,
Okay.
but they were often ineffective and sometimes even dangerous. Think lobotomies or insulin shock therapy.
Yeah.
Chlorpromazine offered a new hope.
Okay.
It was the first effective antipsychotic
Wow.
and really ushered in the modern era of psychopharmacology.
Okay.
It changed the way we understood mental illness and paved the way for the development of countless other medications.
So to understand how these medications actually work,
Yeah.
we need to kind of dive into the brain itself.
Yeah.
What's going on at the cellular level when someone takes an antipsychotic or an antidepressant?
The key lies in understanding neurotransmission,
Right.
the process of how neurons or brain cells communicate with each other.
Right. And that communication relies on these chemical messengers.
It's called neurotransmitters.
Think of it like a relay race.
Okay.
Each runner is a neuron, and the baton they pass is the neurotransmitter.
Okay, I like that.
These neurotransmitters bind to specific receptors on the next neuron, triggering a chain reaction that ultimately leads to a change in behavior or mood.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
So how do psychopharmacological drugs fit into this relay race?
They can either boost or block the signals being passed between neurons.
Oh, okay.
For instance, antipsychotics like the aforementioned chlorpromazine primarily work by blocking dopamine receptors.
Dopamine being one of those neurotransmitters, right?
Yeah.
But why block it? What did that actually do?
Well, dopamine plays a crucial role in mood, motivation, and movement.
Okay.
But in certain conditions, like schizophrenia,
Right.
there's an overactivity of dopamine in specific brain regions.
Okay.
This overactivity contributes to symptoms like hallucinations and delusions.
By blocking dopamine receptors, antipsychotics help to regulate this overactivity and reduce these symptoms.
So it's like turning down the volume on an overactive dopamine signal.
That's a good way to think about it.
Okay.
Of course, the brain is far more complex than a simple volume knob.
Right.
But this analogy helps to illustrate the basic principle.
Okay.
Different classes of medications target different neurotransmitter systems in this way, each with its own unique effects on the brain.
This is already blowing my mind, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
I've heard that medications don't just target mood or anxiety. They can also affect thinking. Memory and attention, is that right?
Absolutely. Medications can have a wide range of cognitive effects,
Oh, wow.
some beneficial and others potentially detrimental.
Okay.
For instance, research suggests that certain antidepressants may actually improve cognitive function in people with depression,
Right.
enhancing their memory and attention.
So in some cases, taking antidepressants could potentially make you think more clearly.
In some cases, yes,
Wow.
but it's a complex issue.
Okay.
While some medications might boost certain cognitive functions, others like benzodiazepines, a type of anti-anxiety medication can have the opposite effect, impairing memory and causing drowsiness.
So it's a trade-off.
Exactly.
You're weighing the potential benefits
Right.
against the potential cognitive side effect.
It highlights the importance of careful consideration and monitoring when it comes to medication.
Right.
There's a delicate balance to strike.
This is all incredibly insightful, and I'm sure our listeners are already starting to see psychopharmacology in a new light.
I hope so.
But we've only just dipped our toes into the water.
Yeah,
There's a whole ocean of knowledge to explore.
there is.
We'll be right back with more of the deep dive after a quick break.
Sounds good. Welcome back to the deep dive in the last segment. We lay the groundwork, exploring the history of psychopharmacology and delving into that intricate world of neurotransmission.
It's complicated.
It is, but now,
Super interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at the stars of the show,
Okay.
the medications themselves.
Yes, let's start with antipsychotics. Those medications used to treat conditions like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
We touched on chlorpromazine's accidental discovery earlier, but I'm curious to know more about how these drugs actually work in the brain.
Well, as we discussed, dopamine plays a key role.
Right.
But it's not just about the amount of dopamine.
Okay.
It's also about where it's acting in the brain.
Okay.
In schizophrenia, for example, there's an overactivity of dopamine, specifically in the mesolimbic pathway,
Okay.
a brain circuit associated with reward and motivation.
So this excess dopamine in the mesolimbic pathway contributes to the symptoms of schizophrenia.
Precisely, think about the positive symptoms of schizophrenia.
Okay.
Hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking. These could be linked to this dopamine dysregulation in the mesolimbic pathway. Antipsychotics aim to address this
Okay.
by blocking dopamine receptors in this area.
Okay, that makes sense. But I've heard there are different types of antipsychotics. What's the difference?
You're right. We can broadly categorize them into two groups.
Okay.
Typical or first-generation antipsychotics
Yeah.
like chlorpromazine and haloperidol,
Hmm.
and atypical or second-generation antipsychotics like risperidone and olanzapine.
So what distinguishes these two generations of antipsychotics? Is it just about when they were discovered?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
While both types primarily work by blocking dopamine receptors, they differ in their affinity for specific receptor subtypes
Okay.
and their actions on other neurotransmitter systems.
Hold on, receptor subtypes. Tell me more about that.
Think of dopamine receptors like different locks,
Okay.
and dopamine is the key.
Okay.
There are various subtypes of these dopamine receptors,
Mhm.
like D1 and D2,
Right.
each with its own unique function and distribution in the brain. Typical antipsychotics tend to bind more strongly to the D2 receptor subtype,
Okay.
which is highly concentrated in that mesolimbic pathway we talked about.
Ah, so by targeting those specific D2 receptors, they can effectively reduce those positive symptoms linked to dopamine overactivity in that pathway.
Exactly. However, this strong D2 blockade also comes with a higher risk of certain side effects,
Okay.
particularly movement disorders.
Like tardive dyskinesia?
Yes.
That movement disorder we discussed earlier?
Tardive dyskinesia can manifest as involuntary repetitive movements, often of the face and tongue,
Right.
and it can be a distressing and long-lasting side effect.
So where do atypical antipsychotics come in? Do they avoid this side effect?
They generally have a lower risk of tardive dyskinesia
Okay.
because they bind less tightly to those D2 receptors
Yeah.
and also have actions on other neurotransmitter systems like serotonin.
Interesting. So are atypical antipsychotics considered better then?
Not necessarily. It's not
Really?
a simple case of better or worse.
Okay.
While atypical antipsychotics generally have a more favorable side effect profile. They can have their own unique set of side effects like metabolic changes.
Okay.
And may not be as effective for everyone.
So it comes back to that personalized approach we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
The choice of antipsychotic depends on the individual, their symptoms,
Yeah.
and their medical history.
It's a careful balancing act, weighing the potential benefits against the potential risks for each individual patient.
This is really making me appreciate how complex psychopharmacology is.
Yeah,
It's not just about finding a magic bullet.
it's not.
It's about understanding the intricacies of the brain and tailoring treatment to each person's unique needs.
Absolutely. And this personalized approach is even more crucial when we consider another major class of medications,
Okay.
antidepressants.
Right. Those medications used to treat mood disorders like major depression.
Yeah.
So how do antidepressants work their magic on the brain?
Well, unlike antipsychotics, which primarily target dopamine,
Right.
antidepressants often focus on other neurotransmitter systems,
Okay.
particularly serotonin and norepinephrine.
Right. Okay. Remind me again what role serotonin plays in the brain.
Serotonin is often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter,
Okay.
but it's involved in a much wider range of
Right.
functions,
Okay.
including mood regulation, sleep appetite, and even cognition.
So when someone's depressed, is there simply not enough serotonin in their brain?
It's more complicated than that.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about a simple deficiency of serotonin,
Right.
but rather dysregulation in how serotonin is being used and transmitted in the brain.
So how do antidepressants address this dysregulation?
One of the most commonly prescribed classes of antidepressants is the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors,
Okay.
or SSRIs.
Okay.
These medications work by blocking the reuptake of serotonin in the synapse,
Oh,
the tiny gap between neurons.
wait, reuptake, what does that mean?
Imagine serotonin being released from one neuron into the synapse.
Okay.
Normally, it would be quickly reabsorbed back into the neuron that released it.
Okay.
SSRIs block this reabsorption process, allowing serotonin to linger in the synapse for a longer period.
Ah, so it's like increasing the availability of serotonin to act on the receiving neuron,
Right.
boosting its signal.
That's the idea. And by enhancing serotonin signaling in certain brain circuits,
Yeah.
SSRIs can help alleviate depressive symptoms.
That makes sense, but are SSRIs the only type of antidepressant?
No, there are other classes.
Okay.
For example, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, or SNRIs, work similarly to SSRIs,
Okay.
but block the reuptake of both serotonin and norepinephrine.
Norepinephrine, another one of those key neurotransmitters. What does it do?
Norepinephrine is involved in the body's stress response,
Oh, okay.
increasing alertness, focus, and energy.
Wow.
It also plays a role in mood regulation.
So by targeting both serotonin and norepinephrine, SNRIs might offer a broader approach to treating depression.
That's the thinking. Some individuals respond better to SNRIs,
Okay.
especially those who experience fatigue or low energy as part of their depression.
It sounds like there's a whole toolbox of antidepressants,
There is.
each with its own unique mechanism and potential benefits.
That's right. And just like with antipsychotics, finding the right antidepressant is a personalized journey.
Right.
It often involves trying different medications and dosages to find what works best for the individual.
So we've covered antipsychotics and antidepressants. Are there other major players in the world of psychopharmacology that we should discuss?
Absolutely. Let's not forget about anxiolytics,
Right.
the medications used to treat anxiety disorders.
Right. Those are sometimes referred to as tranquilizers, right?
They are one of the most commonly prescribed classes of anxiolytics is the benzodiazepines,
Okay.
medications like diazepam and alprazolam.
I've heard of those, but how do they work to reduce anxiety? Do they also target those same neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, or norepinephrine?
Benzodiazepines take a different approach.
Okay.
They primarily target a neurotransmitter called GABA,
Okay.
gamma-aminobutyric acid.
GABA. That's a new one. What's its role?
GABA is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter.
Oh.
Think of it as the brakes in the nervous system,
Right.
calming things down and reducing neuronal excitability.
Okay, so if anxiety is like an overactive nervous system, GABA would be the calming force.
Exactly. Benzodiazepines enhance the effects of GABA,
Okay.
essentially boosting the brain's natural relaxation response.
That makes sense. But I've also heard that benzodiazepines can be addictive. Is that a concern?
It's a valid concern.
Okay.
Benzodiazepines can be habit-forming and can lead to dependence and withdrawal symptoms if used for prolonged periods.
So are they only recommended for short-term use?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
They are often prescribed for acute anxiety or panic attacks,
Okay.
providing quick relief.
Right.
But for long-term anxiety management, other approaches like therapy or different classes of medications might be more appropriate.
So it seems like the key takeaway here is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to treating mental health conditions with medications.
You've hit the nail on the head. Each medication has its own unique mechanism benefits and potential risks. Finding the right treatment is a collaborative journey between the patient and their healthcare provider, involving careful consideration, open communication, and ongoing monitoring.
This has been such an eye-opening discussion.
Yeah.
We've only just begun to explore the vast world of psychopharmacology, and I already feel like I've learned so much.
I'm glad to hear it. And there's still so much more to uncover.
Really?
In our final segment, we'll look beyond these traditional classes of medications and venture into the future of psychopharmacology,
Oh, wow.
exploring exciting new research and the potential of personalized medicine.
Don't miss it. We'll be back soon for the final part of the deep dive. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've journeyed through the history of psychopharmacology, explored the intricate workings of neurotransmission, and
It's a wild ride.
delved into the fascinating world of antipsychotics, antidepressants, and anxiolytics.
Yeah.
Now let's shift our focus to the future. What's on the horizon for this ever-evolving field?
Ooh, the future of psychopharmacology is brimming with possibilities. One of the most exciting areas of research is personalized medicine,
Personalized medicine.
tailoring treatments to an individual's unique genetic makeup.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
I know, right?
Does it even work?
It all comes down to our genes. You see, genes provide the blueprint for the proteins that make up our bodies,
Okay.
including those involved in how we metabolize medications.
Okay.
Variations in these genes can influence how effectively a drug is absorbed, broken down,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately how it affects us.
So someone might metabolize a drug faster or slower than another person because of their genes.
Exactly. And this can have a huge impact on both the effectiveness and the potential side effects of a medication.
Wow.
Someone who metabolizes a drug quickly might need a higher dose to achieve the same therapeutic effect,
Okay.
while someone who metabolizes it slowly might be more susceptible to side effects.
That makes sense. So how does personalized medicine fit into all of this?
Imagine being able to analyze a person's genetic profile before prescribing a medication. We could potentially identify those variations in their genes that might influence their response to the drug.
Oh, wow.
This would allow us to predict whether a particular medication is likely to be effective for them and what dosage would be optimal,
Okay.
minimizing the trial and error process.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like taking the guesswork out of prescribing medications.
Yeah.
But how far off is this technology? Are we talking about something that's decades away?
Not necessarily. The field of pharmacogenomics, which studies the role of genes in drug response, is advancing rapidly.
Oh, wow.
There are already commercially available genetic tests that can provide insights into how individuals metabolize certain medications.
That's remarkable. It sounds like we're on the cusp of a revolution in how we treat mental health conditions.
Yeah, I think so.
Are there any other groundbreaking advancements on the horizon?
Absolutely. Researchers are constantly exploring new drug targets
Okay.
beyond those traditional neurotransmitters we've discussed.
Okay.
For instance, there's growing interest in the role of the endocannabinoid system in mental health.
The endocannabinoid system, that sounds familiar. Isn't that the system that interacts with cannabis?
Yes, but it's much more than that.
Okay.
The endocannabinoid system is a complex network of receptors and signaling molecules that plays a crucial role in regulating a wide range of physiological processes,
Okay.
including mood, sleep, appetite, pain, and even immune function.
So how does this system relate to psychopharmacology?
Dysregulation of the endocannabinoid system has been implicated in several mental health conditions,
Okay.
including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, wow.
Researchers are now exploring ways to target this system to develop novel treatments for these conditions.
So we could potentially see a whole new class of medications that work by modulating the endocannabinoid system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because the endocannabinoid system is so widely distributed throughout the brain and body targeting, it might offer a more holistic approach to treating mental health conditions,
Okay.
addressing not just the symptoms, but also the underlying biological imbalances.
This is all so fascinating. It seems like the future of psychopharmacology is full of promise and potential.
I think so.
But with all this progress, we also have to consider the ethical implications.
You're absolutely right. As with any powerful technology, we need to be mindful of the potential risks and challenges.
Yeah.
For instance, with personalized medicine, we need to ensure that genetic information is handled responsibly and ethically,
Okay.
protecting individuals' privacy and preventing discrimination.
That's a crucial point. We don't want to create a system where access to treatment is determined by someone's genetic profile,
No,
or where individuals are stigmatized based on their genetic predispositions.
exactly. We need to ensure that these advancements are used to promote equity and access to care,
Right.
not to exacerbate existing disparities. It's an ongoing conversation and one that requires careful consideration and open dialogue among scientists, clinicians, policymakers, and the public.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of psychopharmacology. We've uncovered the historical roots,
Yep.
explored the intricate science behind these powerful medications, and even glimpsed into a future filled with exciting possibilities and ethical considerations.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you.
Absolutely.
We've only scratched the surface of this vast and ever-evolving field,
Right.
but hopefully we've sparked your curiosity and left you with a deeper understanding of how psychopharmacology is shaping the landscape of mental health treatment.
It certainly has for me. I'm walking away with a newfound appreciation for the complexity of the brain
It is complex.
and the delicate balance involved in using medications to treat mental health conditions.
Absolutely.
And as research continues to advance, we can expect to see even more targeted, effective, and personalized treatments for mental health conditions in the years to come.
I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of psychopharmacology.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.